Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent McCory in for Hashtag the U-Word. It's Friday, September 3rd. This is Africa 54.
Nigerian authorities scramble to dispel rumors about the COVID vaccine. A closer look at the train that could fast-track South Africa's vaccine rollout. And for Spain's African migrant vendors, innovation is the key to freedom.
Amid the latest wave of COVID-19 infections, less than 1% of people in Africa's most populated country, Nigeria, have been fully vaccinated against the coronavirus. Nigerian authorities are scrambling for more vaccines, but say misinformation and myths are discouraging citizens. Timothy Obiezo looks at efforts to dispel the rumors in this report from Abuja.
Music and jingles in the air addressing one problem: misinformation about the coronavirus vaccine. Here in this camp for displaced people, many have been misled by a viral social media video that portrayed vaccines as a microchip with magnetic qualities. Helen Woko and her team are on a mission to address this problem.
The records we get on the people who have been vaccinated in Nigeria, the percentage is too low compared to, what we're supposed to get. Then we said, let's start from this vulnerable group. These are people who are in an enclosed place.
Woko is the executive director of Aish Initiative, a non-profit focusing on promoting vaccine uptake and humanitarian education. To achieve its goals, the organization is partnering with the Ministry of Health and the National Orientation Agency and is reaching vulnerable groups in rural areas where authorities say it is most needed. Agnes Bartholomew was at the Abuja camp sensitization program and says she will take the job.
Then bring her, we'll still take her.
If they bring it, I'll take it. But they said they've not brought it. That's what we're waiting for.
Fewer than 1% of Nigerians have so far received complete jabs against the coronavirus, an awfully low mark when matched against the 40% authorities were aiming for this year. Officials of the Nigerian CDC say even though the country is yet to acquire sufficient vaccines, myths and misinformation are also to blame for the slow uptake.
We've been noticing that there are challenges around immunity. There are rumors around the fact that natural immunity is better than the vaccination immunity. And then there are also challenges around what the vaccine does when it gets to the body.
Nigeria is seeing a new surge in coronavirus cases and fatalities caused by the deadly Delta variant. The official number of cases stands at 193,000, low compared to many other countries, but the number is rising fast. Authorities say vaccination is the only way to ensure safety and that the country needs to vaccinate 70% of its 200 million people to achieve herd immunity. Timothy Obiezo for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
In the global fight against COVID-19, the White House says the U.S. has shipped more than 2 million doses of Moderna's vaccine to Kenya and Ghana through the COVAX global distribution program. The U.S. has sent over 880,000 doses to Kenya, bringing the total number of doses sent to the East African country to over 1.7 million. The U.S. sent more than 1.2 million doses to Ghana, the first shipment to that country. Thursday shipments were the latest installments in a U.S. vaccine diplomacy push that has sent vaccines to dozens of countries. South Africa is deploying a train to drive its lagging vaccination campaign forward and inoculate those living in rural communities. David Doyle has the details.
The train, now standing at Platform 1, could help protect you against COVID-19. With South Africa's inoculation campaign off to a slow start, a locomotive is being deployed to administer vaccines. Last month, vaccination was made available to all adults as the government ramps up its rollout. For safety manager Simfiwe Djanji, the train makes it possible to avoid the long queues that have since formed at vaccination centres.
We've been waiting for this moment for a very long time, especially we work in industries where, you need to be at work like all the time. So it was very crucial for me to get this vaccine.
The vaccine train is an initiative by state logistics firm Transnet. It's currently parked at Springs Station in South Africa's biggest city, Johannesburg. But in the first week of September, it departs for the rural Eastern Cape. There, it will be available to villagers who don't often have access to basic health services. Dr. Pabalo Mokoena is the train's manager.
We are basically bringing the vaccines to the people. So it cuts down on patients having to travel long distances, wait in long queues, and sometimes even be turned back because vaccines are maybe finished or they get to clinics or hospitals late.
South Africa has been battered by 3 coronavirus waves. Millions have been infected and more than 80,000 have died, by far the continent's heaviest toll. With just 14% of adults fully vaccinated, the government is now aiming for 300,000 inoculations per day. The vaccine train, it's hoped, will keep that ambition on track.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Now, back to West Africa. Police in Zamfara State say 5 girls who were among 73 children kidnapped from a school in northwestern Nigeria have been rescued. The victims were checked out at a hospital, debriefed by the police, and reunited with their families, according to authorities. However, UNICEF says that 100 students between ages 14 and 19 and a teacher had been abducted, of whom 23 had managed to escape and had returned home. 2 of those had sustained bullet wounds. A teacher at the school told Reuters that after some students who had escaped were taken into account, there were still more than 90 missing. Witnesses say fighting erupted in Tripoli Friday between rival armed forces. These are the heaviest clashes in the Libyan capital since the conflict between eastern and western factions paused a year ago. A resident of the Salah al-Din district in southern Tripoli says the shooting began at about 2:30 a.m. local time and continued through the morning with medium and light weapons. There was no immediate report of casualties. According to witnesses, the 444 Brigade squared off against the Stabilization Support Force, 2 of the main forces in Tripoli. The clandestine sea route from the coast of Senegal to Spain is a dangerous voyage for thousands of migrants. For those who make it, what awaits them is a life outside the law and the stigma of being called an illegal immigrant. Jonathan Spire narrates this report from Alfonso Bieto in Barcelona.
Many of those who survive the arduous sea journey to Spain find work selling fake copies of recognised name brand goods on the streets. It is an illegal trade and they spend their days dodging the police. Advocates say the migrants' precarious status makes them vulnerable to exploitation.
There's someone or several people there in the chain of corruption who are getting rich from it and are taking advantage, which is the most delicate part of it, of exploitation. And not only the exploitation of their work, but of humans.
Some Senegalese migrants have come up with a unique way to address that situation. They formed an association 4 years ago to defend their rights and to comply with demands not to sell fake, knockoff items made in China. They created a brand called Top Manta to make original products. The latest, a sneaker. The product is 100% sustainable, made in Spain and Portugal with methods that reduce the carbon footprint. They say their brand provides an alternative to shoes made by large international corporations that they say are not as sensitive to the environment or supportive of local communities.
They are exploiting the environment. They are exploiting workers. We are not considered legal, yet we are doing something legal.
The shoes are labelled Andadem, which means walking together in Wolof, the Senegalese language spoken by many of Barcelona's sidewalk vendors.
This shoe is contributing to the economy of this country.
The The cooperative has had the help of local companies and people like Sarah, an award-winning designer in Barcelona.
To me, it is an added value, the effort we have all made in coming up with a shoe that is ethical and well made.
Top Manta has helped 120 street vendors, known here as manteros or mantle vendors, to take their enterprise beyond their canvases spread on sidewalks. The brand's production and sales numbers are taking off and now employs 25 people. For Alfonso Beato in Barcelona, John Spear, VOA News.
Nigeria's cocoa output is likely to fall by at least 12.5% next season as late and heavy rains threaten to damage the crop and raise the risk of disease, according to the president of the country's Cocoa Industry Association. Soraya Ali reports.
Nigeria's cocoa output is being threatened by bad weather. That's according to the president of the country's Cocoa Industry Association, Mufutau Abolawenwa. He told Reuters that Nigeria's cocoa output is likely to fall by at least 12.5% next season. This comes as late and heavy rains may damage the main crop and raise the risk of disease. That's a big problem for Nigeria, which is the world's 5th biggest cocoa grower. Abolawenwa said farmers are spraying their trees to prevent insects from destroying the pods, adding that they are worried about flowers on the tree being blown away and that overly heavy rains could increase the chances of black pod disease. However, some farmers are expecting that the main crop will be better than the current 2020 to 2021 mid-crop, which typically runs from April or May to September. Abolawenwa said demand for beans was recovering in Europe, the Americas and Asia as economies reopen amid the global health crisis. But trading houses were offering a discount of nearly $250 to the market price for the mid-crop. He said with demand returning, local inspectors are working with farmers and exporters on bean quality to try to boost the grade of Nigeria's cocoa exports.
Soraya Ali, Reuters filed that report. Well, we're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, in our entertainment report, we'll hear from a spoken word artist in Accra, Ghana. Stay with us.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Mudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Supporters are protesting as what could be the country's most restrictive abortion law goes into effect. Diane Michel reports.
Abortion rights advocates protested across Texas this week over a new law that bans abortions at about 6 weeks, when a fetus first has a heartbeat. It could be the most restrictive abortion law in the U.S.
The law that Texas has will in effect prohibit about 90% of abortions that were happening in the state, and that will be the status quo at least indefinitely, even if there's ultimately a later court challenge that's successful.
6 weeks is often before women know they are pregnant, observers have noted. Since 1973, women in the U.S. have had the right to an abortion until about 22 to 24 weeks into a pregnancy, when the fetus might be able to survive outside the womb. The Texas law is also unique because it relies on private citizens to enforce it.
The only people who can enforce it are private citizens bringing lawsuits against abortion providers or against people who, quote, aid or abet in abortion. So anyone from family members to advocacy groups.
Joe Poyman with the Texas Alliance for Life, an organization that opposes abortion, is celebrating.
Children in coming months will be born who otherwise may have lost their lives to abortion.
Poyman says the provision that allows private citizens to file civil claims against abortion clinics and win $10,000 at a minimum will act as a deterrent.
We're not interested in seeing lawsuits go forward. We're really interested in seeing babies be protected.
He points to expanded state funding for pregnancy centers like this one, where pregnant women receive services and are encouraged to take pregnancies to term. Deacon Mark Fair, the chief executive of this pregnancy center, expects more women will use his center's service as a result of the new law.
Right now, we still have our summer clothes on display, but in a few months, as it gets colder here in Texas, we'll exchange them out for winter clothes.
Women are going to be hurt by this law, abortion rights advocates say, particularly those who don't have the resources to go to other states for an abortion or seek ways to medically end pregnancies.
To have the autonomy over your own body.
Paxton Smith gained attention last spring when she turned her valedictorian speech at her Dallas high school into a call for her classmates to fight the new law, which had not yet gone into effect.
The fact that that life-changing decision has been taken out of my hands and given to somebody else is just incredibly dehumanizing.
While the U.S. Supreme Court voted 5-4 to let the Texas law take effect for now, it will take up a challenge to a similar law in its next term, which starts in October. Dina Mitchell for VOA News, Austin, Texas.
Although U.S. military involvement in Afghanistan has ended, U.S. officials said there are still diplomatic and economic options for protecting the rights of Afghans under Taliban rule. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has the latest.
The Taliban now in full control of the Kabul airport and almost all of Afghanistan, as the final week of the 20-year U.S. military involvement there comes to a close. But the Taliban faces challenges as the women of Afghanistan demand respect for their human rights, protesting here in the streets of Herat. And a serious drought sweeps the country, raising questions about how the country will sustain itself without significant international aid. The U.S. has not recognized the Taliban as the official government of Afghanistan.
No one is saying from the federal government, no one, the president, the Secretary of Defense, no one from the intelligence community, that the Taliban are good actors, right? We are not saying that. That is one of the reasons we are being so clear that we are not rushing to recognition. We will be watching clearly. We have a range of leverage at our disposal, including access to the global marketplace.
The U.S. is working to reopen Afghan airports and redirect aid to directly assist the Afghan people. U.S. government aid to Afghanistan is under review, the U.S. State Department said Thursday, dependent on the formation of a new Afghan government.
What we will be looking to when it comes to the issues that you've raised, including the potential for any forms of assistance, will be the actions of any new Afghan government, especially vis-a-vis the areas we care profoundly about. That is safe passage, respect for the rights of the people of Afghanistan, including women and girls and minorities, a government that is inclusive, a government that follows through on its counterterrorism commitments, and a government that respects the universal and international norms.
Still outside of Taliban control is the Afghan province of Panjshir, where resistance fighters led by Ahmad Massoud have fought fiercely in recent days. But the Pentagon said the U.S. was not involved in helping the resistance.
The U.S. military mission in Afghanistan is over.
But at an Air Force base in Germany, the U.S. military effort to clear Afghan evacuees to enter the U.S. was accelerating, the Pentagon said Thursday.
We're about to become in a position to where we're going to process about 500 or 600 in every day, and we're probably going to have 2,500 to 3,000 to depart every day.
From the fall of Kabul to the last military flight on August 31st, the U.S. says it has evacuated 124,000 people. But thousands more remain behind, fearing Taliban retribution. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
Women serving in the Afghan military say that they are worried about their safety and future under the Taliban. Yalda Bakhtash has this report.
Mazari Amani, one of the few female generals in the Afghan army, was among those who fled Kabul on August 15, the day the Taliban entered the city. Amani, who is now in France, says that she's worried about the safety of her female colleagues still in Afghanistan. Many of these women have said they fear for their lives now that the militants are in control of the country.
Some of the women who contact me say that the Taliban are searching for them, carrying out night raids of their houses, getting biometrics. They say they are not in their houses, and they do not know how long they will be hiding in the houses of others.
Amani says that she receives dozens of calls each day from her female colleagues.
They want me to help to raise their voice to the world that their lives are in danger.
Despite the Taliban's assurances that they will allow women to work outside their homes, the female soldiers want the international community to exert pressure on the militant group.
My demand from the international community and the U.S. is to get guarantees from the Taliban that they stand by their pledges.
But some women do not believe the Taliban will change their position on women, particularly those in uniform.
The Taliban point of view toward women is that they do not accept women participating at any level, particularly if you're a military woman. What do you think the Taliban would offer in this regard?
Thousands of women were serving in the security sector in Afghanistan before the Afghan government collapsed. Many women's rights activists are concerned that the gains made by women in the past 2 decades in Afghanistan are at risk now that the Taliban are back in power. Yalda Bakhtash, VOA News, Washington.
At least 40 people were killed by floods in New York and New Jersey caused by the remnants of Hurricane Ida, which made landfall in Louisiana earlier this week. Here's Aisha Sarai.
The death toll in New York and New Jersey continues to rise after the remnants of Hurricane Ida caused heavy rainfall and flash floods across the region.
We saw a horrifying storm last night, unlike anything we have seen before. And this is a reality we have to face. Unfortunately, the price paid by some New Yorkers was horrible and tragic.
Most of the victims in New York City died when their basement homes were flooded. Many more reported property damage.
I feel very sad for them, but I just count myself lucky because I'm not in that bad situation. But still, it's terrible for the community here.
More drownings were reported in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Despite warnings from the National Weather Service, the strength of the storm took many by surprise. Hurricane Ida made landfall in Louisiana exactly 16 years after Hurricane Katrina devastated the U.S. Gulf Coast.
The people of Louisiana and Mississippi are resilient and resourceful. We're going to stand with you for as long as it takes to recover and allow you to rebuild.
The devastation caused by the storm across the East Coast has led many to question whether their cities are prepared for the increasingly negative effects of climate change. Isha Sarai, VOA News.
Now, to wind up the week, let's go to Accra, Ghana, where spoken word artist Poetra Asanetwa talks about her craft and performs a short poem just for us. The host of VOA's Music Time in Africa, Heather Maxwell, has more.
Who among you has ever dreamed of nothing more than being a house pet? You're about to meet one young artist from Ghana whose dream is exactly that. And and then some.
The thing I like the most about my profession is the writing process. I like that the writing process is not just putting pen to paper or sitting behind a computer to type. It also includes observation of people, things, buildings, situations, and thinking. I think writing involves a lot of thinking, and I like that writing makes me think. Some African dreams are made up of white ambitions, of bank accounts plump enough to accelerate a departure to Canada, of jumping the class hierarchy to the top of the political ladder so they too can have their share of the national pie, of opportunities overseas that afford earnings hefty enough to own land and property back at home, of putting their countries on the map via validations of headlines and white papers. But I only dream of being a house pet, well-fed, well-housed, well-lathered in care, and how I dream of landing softly. What inspires me the most is working with women collaborating, women thinking, women engaging.
Woman at a political rally who claimed space on a soapbox, renamed herself in show of solidarity, slashed her cheeks with blade, smeared blood over her body, and dared all the men present to follow suit, to demonstrate that their collective freedom was worthy of any skin-deep sacrifice.
One of the people or the woman who really inspires me and my work is my mother. My mother is the original jack of all trades. She draws, she paints, she sews. She's always eager to learn. She's always learning, and just watching her be herself really inspires me to continue to do good work.
Just for you so that you can have all the happiness.
So that's Poetra Asanetwa. She's currently working on a play and a new album. I guess she's gonna have to shelve that dream of being a house pet for just a little longer. I'm Heather Maxwell. See you next time.
Thank you, Heather. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us in Washington, have a great weekend.